But now you've all discovered that using a theme can be frustrating at times because they only give you a certain amount of control. They'd really like you to upgrade to Pro. Now, if you want to run a professional site and you want to buy the Pro version of a theme, then you will have quite a bit of control. But even then, usually the author or the publisher retains some of the functionality and doesn't give you complete control over a site as if you designed a theme. So what do you do if you want to customize your site? In this case, CSS is the most powerful option. Besides plugins or widgets, CSS can customize your page as far as colors, spacing between your text, different size fonts, different types of colors that aren't available in the website itself or the theme itself. This is why we use a child theme, because at some point, if you've added enough CSS or caused a conflict between one of your plugins, widgets, or CSS formatting, it can take an awful long time to troubleshoot. So it's a great idea to have a child theme. If you have to go back to your original theme, the worst thing that you will lose is the custom CSS that you've added. So let's talk for a minute about some of that CSS. Last week we used the Site Origin CSS editor. They have both a text version and a visual editor, as you discovered. Now, the visual editor is great in that it not only gives you the ability to control certain elements of your page, such as being able to change font styles or italicize text or change it all to capitalization. With the decoration capability, you can change a background color in a cell. So I can change the background color in a specific block, not a cell, and make the site look a little bit more customized. Now, I don't really like this color, but I'm showing you the options that you have. Now, as you notice that I didn't just change the background color in one cell. Since the class is shared by multiple blocks, that CSS change will affect all of the blocks. Now, when I click the checkbox, I'm going to see the CSS that the Site Origin CSS has assigned. Now, that's an Elementor block, so that's why we have the class .elementor on the screen, and we have a background color. I'm going to go ahead and delete that because I do not like it. Now, the other type of CSS is built into your customizer. You'll find it at the bottom of the menu. Usually it says Additional CSS. It may have a slightly different menu, but you'll usually find it somewhere down there. Now, you may ask the question, what is the difference between the theme CSS and Site Origin CSS? Anything that you paste into your CSS in the theme will stay with your currently active theme. So if you are using a child theme, then you will still see the CSS there if there is a problem with the site. Your parent WordPress theme is updated. Your child will maintain and retain the changes that you've made. Using the customizer, the Site Origin CSS, that can sometimes break if Site Origin conflicts with another plugin, or if the plugin is disabled or uninstalled. So the best place to install and use CSS is using your theme's additional CSS. So let's take a look at some of the elements on my homepage. For some of you that have visited my homepage more than once, I have removed the background because I thought it looks a little bit more professional this way, a little cleaner, a little bit more modern. And I've added a menu to my footer. I recommend this very highly. Having navigation in your footer is a wonderful thing because oftentimes people will come to the bottom of your page and not see or not know where to go from there, so they scroll back up. But having a footer menu, like the one I've created here, is very useful. And you notice that it's scaled down. I don't have any sub-items. I only have the main menu items here because I don't want to clutter up my footer. So once I have created a footer menu and chosen the footer as the location for it, as you can see, as I just showed you, my footer has a menu on all pages. Now you may note, if you look very closely, that it looks like I've got some bits missing from some of my text. The O here has a notch out of it, the U here. My cart has a little bit of a notch taken out of it too. When WordPress or HTML creates a list, it is an unordered list. For those of you that have taken HTML and CSS, an unordered list is usually dotted and an ordered list is numbered. So in this case it's creating an unordered list and we still have the dots. Now I want to get rid of those dots. If I were to go to Custom CSS and look at the visual editor, I can scroll to the bottom and I can see that this item is a footer-menu. It is a list item and it has a hover. So if I hover over it, it changes color. Alright, I can see the color, I can see that there's 0 outline, 0 border, and the WebKit is a border box around the outsides. So the issue is, how do I remove the dots? There's nothing here to tell me where I would get rid of those dots. There's no option here in the custom CSS. So, as we often do when we're trying to find some useful information, we can actually go to Google and say, how do I remove the dots? So I did that. And in order to save us a little bit of time, one of the things that I found is a nifty piece of CSS, and it says bottom footer. The class is .footer-menu and the list style equals none. As you see, my dots have disappeared from my menu. I no longer have that dotted list, so now I just have a nice pretty unobstructed menu there. Now things are a little squished on my screen at the moment because I want you to be able to see everything. You'll also see that I added a menu to the footer here in the second space, and what I've done is taken the text widget and I'm creating a menu that will go directly to various blogs that I've created. Now right now the colors are a little different because I haven't styled them with CSS, but having navigation throughout your site is a wonderful idea. Alright, so as you see, when we went to custom CSS and I touched this menu item, it says .footer menu, and just like my code, I have .footer menu here for the class. The hashtag bottom footer refers to the PHP that creates my bottom footer, and I now have those dots missing, and that makes things look a lot nicer. So custom CSS gives us some great control over the various graphic and text elements, at least for colors, but it doesn't always tell us how to style certain things that the theme is insisting on imposing on us. Now the other thing that many people note at the bottom of their page is that you will always see a copyright. The copyright is your copyright for the content that you've created on your site. It's a great idea to have there. If somebody copies that information, your copyright here protects you, and if you choose to, you can make things difficult for them. I don't choose to, but I don't have any truly copyrighted information here other than my prices and my blogs are copyrighted separately. So I would like to get rid of this branding at the bottom of the screen. Say I've created a new website for a certain client, and I prefer that WordPress does not advertise on my screen. I would really rather not have that. I would rather not have them see that I got the free Flash theme by ThemeGrill. Proudly powered by WordPress isn't so bad, but as you notice, despite the fact that half of the world's internet sites, or more than half, are WordPress, you will very rarely see this at the bottom of the screen because it gives away that it's a WordPress shell rather than a custom designed theme. So if I take this CSS, and we once again have bottom footer, we have the .copyright, which is the class, and if we click on our copyright here, you'll see that we have a .copyright, and it is text in my text area. So I've got the .copyright class here, and as you notice, the branding went away. Now I'd like to point out that it isn't actually gone. It hasn't been removed from WordPress. It's merely been hidden. So you can take that information out. You can publish your new site for your new client or for your friend, family member, or a business that you are creating a website for, and remove that branding at the bottom so you have a little bit more of a professional look. Now, one of the challenges will be to see if you can find CSS that will let you change that information despite not having a paid theme, and I encourage you to try that. So one of the other things that I wanted to be able to do is add a little bit of customization to other parts of my site. Now some of these can be done with custom CSS, but some of them are just done a little bit more cleanly using CSS and then styling that later. So for example, I want to go to my blog page, so I can simply copy and paste the URL of the page that I'm working on into the Site Origin CSS editor, and now I've got my blog. Now I like my blog and I like the general style of this, but I would really like to separate some of my posts so that they are in their own boxes rather than looking like they flow from one to the next. Obviously I'm logged in, so you're going to see an edit button. I'd also like to do a little bit of styling on my widget area. Now the widget area can be very difficult, since you notice each section has a class. So if I click on archive, the class is widget title. Okay, and if I click on categories, I'm going to get the same thing: widget title, meta, widget title. The only thing is the difference is what the actual information is that I'm clicking on, such as meta, categories, archive. And I can even click on individual functionality on my page, and you'll see that it's all .widget, and you'll find that there are different classes available. So it can be a little confusing when you're trying to edit. So in this case, well, let's go back and try that. So I'm going to click on the box in general. So now I've selected it, and I have widget recent entries, which is recent posts, and I can go to my layout and add a box, or change the padding or the margins around my text. So I can change the padding around them, move them to the right a little bit, move them to the left a little bit. I can change their positioning, which may or may not affect depending on the theme I'm using. But I can choose a fixed, an absolute, a relative, but as you can see, it kind of plays havoc with my theme, because when I choose fixed, that means that it kind of disappears and another widget will replace it. So it isn't always easy to use custom CSS Site Origin, but it makes it incredibly simple to find out things like what the class is I've just clicked on, what the title of the widget actually is, such as widget recent comments, recent posts. If I click on that, I might think that was recent posts, but it's actually widget recent entries. So what I can do now is I can go back to customize, and I'm going to go ahead, and here we can click on the different pages. I'm going to go to my digital journal, and once again I have some CSS that I have gleaned from various areas of simply Googling it, just to show you that we can do that. So if we look at this piece of CSS, this is .widget. Now .widget means that this refers to any widget. Okay, so you'll see that I've just added some code to put some nice boxes around my widgets. Now the widgets themselves look pretty good in there now. The curved corners, I can make those curved corners larger or smaller. I can make the border thicker, change the border radius to 10. Oh, the border radius is the corner. I'm sorry, I've got that backwards. And I can change the border thickness by changing the border property here. I can change the border radius. I can change the background color of my border. If I want to change it to, say, 252, I've got a lovely background, or 25, there we go. I've got a lovely teal background. Which I don't find lovely at all, since it doesn't fit my theme. But now I have been able to manage to style all of my widgets and give them a little bit of personality and separate them somewhat. Now I don't have to style all of my widgets the same way. If I wanted to just have my search widget have a box around it, whoops, I can have it just that way. If I wanted to put boxes around every other one, for example, I could find out what the class name is for recent comments and go to my recent comments section and see that it is actually widget underscore recent underscore comments, and I can change this to underscore recent underscore comments. And now I've got a border around my search and around my recent comments. I can also do that for archives, categories, and meta. And again, if you are experimenting with it and not finding the correct class name, archives is not archives. So if I want to style that widget, I'm going to need to find out what that is. It's archive, no S. So I can take the S off, and I've got a box there too. So this gives us the capability of styling our site a little bit more than the theme is going to allow us to do. So I don't advocate circumventing copyright or licensing in order to get around paying someone for their hard work. However, styling a page a certain way with font colors, font sizes, borders, boxes, and that kind of thing isn't undermining the author. You are not changing functionality of the site, you're merely customizing the look of it somewhat. So here's some other things I'd like to do. For example, if I went to custom CSS and looked at my blog entries, I can click on them and it's telling me all the post type information, whether it's status published, format, all that kind of thing. And if I want to change the spacing in between, I can change the margins, I can change the padding, I can change all kinds of things. If I go to decoration, I can add a box shadow, so I can look at my blog here, for example. If I go to decoration and select the box that I want to work with, I can do various things like change the background color, so I can have every other blog post have a different background color so that they stand out from each other a little bit. I can go red, black, or pink and yellow, or whatever I want to do in order to alternate back and forth so that my blogs stand out from each other a little bit more. It helps people to be able to visually see the different posts, but as you see, some of these things can be a little bit difficult. In other words, changing borders. I can add a border, and as you see, nothing happens. So there's no border here. So the theme is preventing me from doing that. But I want to be able to add some style to my blog posts other than color, which I'm going to go ahead and remove the color now. There's nothing wrong with doing this. Many sites alternate colors from blog to blog. Usually something a little bit more solid or subtle, maybe a little dark gray, light gray, dark gray, light gray. Something to make it stand out but not make it look too, not make it too in your face. So if we go back to customize, and I've added a box shadow. Now again, my screen's a little bit squished because I have a menu over here, so I'm not seeing the full size. But you notice that I have a little bit of a shadow, and I have a little differentiation of color here. You can see that there is a faint line around here, but as you scroll down, my blogs are now separated from each other, and there's a little bit of a wall there so that users can see from one blog to the next which one is which. Most themes don't have an issue with this, but some have a little bit of problem with styling, and it makes it difficult to see one blog post to the next. Now the other thing I'd like to do is go to my shop page. Now my items here, the colors are differentiated fairly well. The padding in between the items is pretty good, but if I want to add a little bit of character to that page, I can go to custom CSS once again and go to my shop page. And once I've opened my shop, I can look at my stuff here, and I can look at the various products. But I would like to do a little bit of styling to my page here as well. So if we go to the custom CSS, which I have clicked out of, so hold on, let me get right back to it here in just a second. Go to custom CSS. We can click here, and go back to my shop. And I can see my items once again. And you can see that there are so many different class name sections. The price, we can change the color of the price, we can change the color of the text, we can change the styling of the pictures. But I would just like to do a little bit of differentiation from one product to the next. So if I look at the class name, I can look at the box and see the various class names. And it looks like we have an unordered list, and it's .products. So I can verify that by looking around a little bit more. I've got .product, .products. Okay. So I'm going to go back to customize, and here I've got the information that I need to be able to put a border around my posts. So I should be able to also put a border around my products. I can do that by typing product. So as you see, we had two classes here. So the products was the overall box, and then the product was the individual products. So I have added some CSS to give me a little bit of border around my products. Now I'm going to change that somewhat. I'm going to mess around with it a little bit more, and I'm going to make it so that the box goes all the way around my product description. I'm not going to show you immediately how to do that because I want you to figure some of this out. Now there are other options on the different pages that we can do as well. For example, one of the things that many of you may have discovered is that there are certain pages that have a functionality that adds a return to cart button to your page. Now this is a view cart button, so that's not the one I'm looking at. And if I empty my cart, let's empty my cart, click X. Alright, we have a return to shop button here. And despite the fact that we're already in the shop, the return to shop button appears. Now I don't know whether this is a glitch in WooCommerce or it's just one of those things that's a little bit annoying to see. Return to shop makes no sense when I'm already in the shop. The customer is already here. Okay, so there are functionalities for that as well. So we can actually remove that return to shop button by adding, once again, a little bit of CSS. And I added some code, and now the return to shop button is gone. The class is button.wc-backward, which is WooCommerce-backward. So the return to shop was their way of going back. And all I've added is the display none. Now we saw this before when we were up here in our bottom footer, the copyright display none. And for the footer menu, the list style is also none. So in this case, we didn't have to say display. We need to change the list style. But the none just makes sure that it does not show up on your page. Now there are other features as well. For example, if we go to our shop page, one of the features at the top is the default sorting. Now, I may not want my items to be sorted by popularity. I may not want my customers sorted by the latest, because the latest may not be the current product for that particular one. I can do sort price, I can do all these things, but sometimes the ability to sort like this isn't necessarily appropriate for our page. So we can change various things again there by adding CSS, and these are actually pretty easy to find since WooCommerce customers are often adding this kind of thing. So I can paste this in, order by, display none. Now I can find out what that is by going again to custom CSS. If I were clicking here, we have order by as the class. So I have simply chosen to display none. Once again, this just further cleans up my shop page a little bit more. One of the other things is this breadcrumb trail. Now you notice it has a background color that doesn't really fit my theme. It just puts more space in there and it kind of messes around with how my site looks. And I don't necessarily want it there. Now that's the container. So we have breadcrumb breadcrumb-trail.breadcrumbs. We also have trail title. Okay, so this is the title of the trail, and a trail just simply leads back to the beginning. Breadcrumbs, like in the story of Hansel and Gretel, they drop breadcrumbs to help them get back to the get back home. So what breadcrumbs do on a WordPress site is help you get back home by telling you what page you're on. So we can remove all kinds of things by changing where and when certain things are displayed and when things are not displayed. So now that I know the class, or I assume I know the class, I can try a couple of things here and see how they affect my page. So trail-title didn't do the trick, so why don't we just go ahead and remove the hashtag breadcrumbs and see if removing the wrapper does the trick. So now we can change that trail-title, and I'm going to put display : none, and it's gone. So now I don't have that big ugly border at the top with a strange background that doesn't match my theme. Looks a little bit cleaner to me, and I can do a little bit more editing on my spacing and padding to make my products sit away from each other a little bit more, and play some more with CSS. I invite you to do the same. The code that I used will be available in the assignment. As always, email me if you have any questions, and have a great week.